there was a missing stop sign at Emerson and Howe, and so I contacted Deputy Chief Noonan. He came out, and the missing sign was legislated, so they put a temporary sign there. One of the present signs was not legislated, so they're looking just to kind of clean up the legislation and the signs. This is taking what has been treated like a four-way stop and simply formalizing it as a four-way stop. But we're not changing any traffic expectations in any way. Does that make sense?
Thank you. The next one is ordinance number 3, an ordinance designating a section of Kemble Street between Hobart and Grove Place as Essential Workers Way. This is sponsored by Councilmember Lemetico and Councilmember Miola. Little update on this one.
I thought were we going to try to get full council on this, I think? When it comes out, I'll try.
The extra sign, right, that goes underneath.
Right, yeah, we're not changing the name of the street, but we're just going to.
And you sorted out the which corner is which, and yeah.
The honorable judge right over there,
Yeah.
he took care of me.
I read through it. It looks good. Yeah.
I'm sorry I couldn't fix it last week, but I went offline on my computer, and when you guys were discussing it, I had no clue you were discussing it, so. But thank you, Judge, for straightening that out for me.
Can I ask a?
Councilman Friend, she's the one that says you have to have a way.
So you're going to put it in two places, right? So it designates like a length of the street.
That's it. It's
One
going
block.
to be on both corners
Right.
of Grove and Kemble.
So, but we're not changing. We're not
No,
legally
it's just-
changing it. Nobody has to change.
The more I
their
talked
address.
about it, all the post office box, everybody who lives on that street would have to change their thing. Everybody would have to change their license on their social security, and it's not there to punish people. It's there to recognize other people. But I would have loved to have, because of the great job that our essential workers have done and through this COVID and everything
Right.
here. But I think this is just a good way to celebrate
And
what they've done.
I'd like to speak on behalf of this, in support of this
I
one
expected
on the
that.
council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when
And
we
hopefully
get
we'll
to
get
it.
full council on it.
I'm certainly happy to be on this.
I'm good with full council.
I have a recommendation that we put these essential workers, maybe the next council meeting, whatever, in front of St. Luke's, St. Elizabeth's, and Faxon.
That'd be one hell of a street.
No, just put a little way there,
Well, we could put little sign stands.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's some different.
Because Laurel Home, it's a nursing home, not the right anymore, but.
Mark, how about if they put it in writing to ask us, and we have no problem doing the same thing?
Right,
All
but
right.
I don't want to change this.
No,
No, this
absolutely
is-
not. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Full council, right?
Yes. Next one is ordinance number 4 by Councilmember Friend. It is a permission to erect an 8-foot fence along the side fence line at above said location, Lamont Place. Are you good with this one?
I'm good with this.
Yeah, then what's the status on it? They moving them?
They've begun moving.
Boxes?
So this is 325 Lamond, which are those really deep lots, and somebody put 2 shipping containers, started getting cited, then went to the zoning board of appeals, and they turned him down. He has started to remove them, so he's removed one of them. But meanwhile, there's just a lot of activity going on in that backyard that is unpleasant for the neighbors. So Lee is simply asking to have an 8-foot fence, but you can see in the map, she reduces it to 6 feet.
That's why I know what the Connex boxes are.
They've started to, they've taken 1, so that's a good sign.
Nice job with the map. Very nice.
The next one is resolution number 5. It's from Councilmember Beatrice. Resolution calling for the proper signage to be placed where appropriate regarding section 2-16-373 scheduled R heavy trucks other than thorough freight motor truck prohibited. You good with this one?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. What I'd like to talk to you guys about it, there's another one, you want to read the other one in back of it?
Sure.
And then I'll go over everything?
The next one is resolution number 6. It is a resolution calling for the proper signage to be placed where appropriate regarding section 2-16-372, Schedule Q, through freight motor truck routes.
Okay, so we all know, it is on. We all know the issues that we have on Herkimer Road. It's been this way for years. Okay, and I did a little research, and I found that it's in our city charter with everything that that I've wanted to do. And all I'm asking is that we enforce what's in our city charter. Not trying to stop commerce by any means. Any trucks are more than welcome there, but we need to limit the heavy tractor trailers and the traffic that's going over that road. And I think every one of you guys know that, okay? I'll use a perfect example. We had that fire at Charlestown, and all I heard was for 4 or 5 days is the city should have done something 25 years ago with Charlestown. Well, I don't want to be in this position when a tractor trailer flips over, hits a kid, or does something, and everybody's going to come out and say, we knew there was a traffic problem and we did nothing about it there. So that's, I'm only asking that we do what's in our charter.
That's enforceable, right, Chief?
Yes. Joe, why don't you enlighten them about what you're doing in Skylar too?
Okay, I did contact the, Jack gave me the supervisor from Skylar. He told me he was gonna get back with the people. He believes it will not be a problem putting a sign up before the Skylar corners. And that's just where we're going. And this basically, I know before we were talking about weight limits, okay? This doesn't specific, so we don't need to have scales. It basically, you know, I mean, I would think, Chief, that we could pull somebody over if we thought somebody's truck wasn't local, or, you know, I'm not trying to stop everything, but I think if we,
I'm trying to solve a problem, and it is a problem, there's no question about it. The information we got from state DOT that's been designated a federal truck route. Therefore, any enforcement of that road would be illegal by us. So that's why we haven't done any enforcement. And I don't know if putting the signs is gonna make any difference, other than the fact that we just can't enforce it.
well, why can't we, as far as that goes, that road, when they say it's a federal road, designated road, that was designated before Route 5S was made. Okay, so you have a parallel trucking route that's right there. So you know what? I played with everybody. I tried to do something. I need to do something here. Okay, and the bottom line here is, if this is, in the worst case scenario, if this is a state trucking road, then the state needs to, like they brag in New Hartford about how good their roads are, then the state needs to come in and pave that road every year, cover the manholes, and eliminate the problems that are going on in that road. And I don't mean to raise my voice, I'm just frustrated with the whole situation.
You're definitely stating a problem. My only problem is when we create a city ordinance, it's gonna put the pressure on us to enforce something that the state DOT has done the research on and told us we can't do enforcement on.
So, Councilman Beatrice, may
Yes.
I
I have a question
add
as well.
something to this before,
What's that?
may I add something to this?
Sure you may.
All right, so, thank you, Majority Leader. Chief, essentially, these two pieces are resolutions right now because of the fact that it's already in the charter from 1992. So what Councilman Beatrice is just asking the council is to pass these resolutions requesting that the signage matches what's currently in the charter. And if that's step one, that's step one.
The only problem is.
Right,
But
understood.
the ordinance does not match what the research of DOT says. And once the signs go up, my concern is that the residents are gonna expect enforcement when we can't do it. And
Okay.
that's my concern.
Could I add to this a little bit?
You have the floor.
I know, I spoke with Councilman Beatrice about this, and I'm in total agreement with this, because some of these trucks, there's a lot of construction going on in the city and up in Marcy, and some of these trucks are you know, monster trucks. They're huge, filled with concrete mix, whatever it may be, material that they have to bring back and forth. But the one thing that I would like to do, if maybe, you said, Chief, step one, maybe the signage, I don't know if we can enforce it, but step two may be sending some of these local trucking companies, you know, that travel these roads, or others, send a memo from the city, maybe Corporation Council could draw it up or something, to say, listen, you know, we want you to use Route 5S. We don't want you to drive through our city with these oversized vehicles. And if we could send this message to some of these trucking companies that you may be forced to pay a fine, not that we're going to enforce it fully right now until we get clarification, but I think that would be another step to go in.
Just a
got a
note,
question.
just a note on that, we've tried working with the trucking companies, and and their main purpose when they trout they go their routes is to save on money for fuel, because of the heaviness of these trucks. And they're gonna take the shortest route regardless of what we tell them, unless it's enforceable.
I got a question.
Williamson, you have Williamson, you have the floor.
I got a question.
Hang on just one second. Majority Leader, after you hand the floor to Councilman Williamson,
you're
the judge also would like
I
to.
like that.
Yeah.
Make a comment.
Do you mind if the judge goes first?
Well, it's probably gonna make my question, but, hey, Judge, so if we pass this, we force it out, right? We actually force this to the state and say,
I
basically,
get it.
listen, you need to
But
adjust your
we gotta do
mapping.
something about it,
You
Mark.
put a new Route 5, we spent millions of dollars on a new Route 5, and we're not utilizing it, we're still using Herkimer Road from way back in the day before Route 5 was
So what are we
actually
gonna do
built.
if you enforce it?
Well, I've been hearing for a long time about the state's interest in this, supposedly. And I rarely disagree with the chief of police. But however, when you have a city ordinance, it may conflict with some directives in the state DOT, even federal directives. However, when it's never been litigated, and there's no direct, you're getting telephone conversations, you're getting memos that are probably 50 years old, and you've got a 5S. A 5S now comes right off the thruway, it goes right through the city of Utica, through the brand-new multi-million-dollar highway down here on Broad Street, and then you can go where you want to go, you can get to the thruway. I don't think, one of the problems is, you know, Utica was built a long time ago. How do you get to the thruway? Well, it's easier to get to the thruway on 5 than it is obviously on 5S, because at some point you've got to go down Genesee Street down north with those big trucks. It's something, they're looking for the thruway, I think, after 5S. Maybe they stay on 5. Quite frankly, I've never seen real big rigs on 5 going from here to Syracuse. And supposedly it's the same rule applies for 5 after you leave Utica. So I think you got 5S. I don't know, and you've got pretty total new highway all the way to the exit that goes to the thruway. And you can go to the thruway through that loop
Right there.
that is the end of Broad Street or Riscony Boulevard that loops down to the thruway. They don't even have to go down North Genesee Street to do that and get off at the thruway. They don't want to do that. So suppose somebody gets a ticket for doing that because the sign's there. Well, let them litigate it. Let them prove that the city charter is invalid. I don't know that it's invalid. I'm not going to give you a legal opinion saying it's invalid. If the sign says you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. If the sign conflicts with state and federal law, well, let somebody tell us so. Let somebody actually make a decision. And I think once you get that traffic ticket, these are truckers. They can afford to tell us in the court that that is an invalid ticket. Prove it. I mean, for me to give you a legal opinion, and that's what you look from your attorney, and what you look from the corporation counsel, has he ever litigated that and found out that that sign in our charter is wrong? I've never asked him, but I was in city court 22 years and I never saw it, so I don't know. But I say one thing, Route 5, if you put the sign there, they might stay on 5S. They may not. And they may get a ticket under the city. And all I can say is, what happens after that? I would really be curious to know what will happen after that. But it's not as if you're giving a ticket to some poor person who has to litigate this. You're talking about companies that can afford to litigate it, and it might be important to them. Fine, litigate it. Tell us that we're wrong. Tell us that our charter is wrong. Tell us that we can't do that.
So So,
I see around the country people burning down public buildings. I'm telling them that that's wrong. You know, I think it's wrong, and I think it's actionable. But, you know, enforcement of the law is what it is. I think if I lived down Herkimer Road and I saw those big rigs coming down, and one did turn over in front of my house, I think the chief of police and the police officer there, under our charter, probably give them a ticket for being on that road. Maybe they'll think twice about that.
Councilmember Miola, you have the floor
Real
next.
close, you know, the sidewalk to the curb on Herkimer Road, to homes, is very, very narrow. So,
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I think. I
Thank you.
cannot give you a legal opinion, as I've never seen it litigated all the time I was there.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, that's all I have to
Councilmember
say.
Miola, you have the
Do
floor.
what you wish, ladies and gentlemen.
Councilman, just a quick, brief thing. Of course, Joe told us, and the state has no responsibility of it, the DOT. So maybe we could write a request letter to the DOT, so just in case, so the chief could enforce it and maybe change the legislation on that street. So there's another option we can look for in the future on this. Because if the state forego the responsibility of paving and keeping the street up, of course they forego the responsibility of the signage on that street. So maybe the judge, all of us to get a quick resolution together for Joey on this and send it to the state, our legislators, and maybe we can come in compliance with DOT after that, and they can, any type of responsibility or authority on the road, let it go, and we'll have the full authority of it like we do every street in the city of Utica.
I think we should force the issue now.
Okay,
We're gonna bring this out tonight.
I think we should force this.
I agree with you guys.
And that way it gets the wheel.
I'll sign my name to that letter,
All right.
Councilman Beatrice.
Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you.
I want to clarify with the chief. Your concern is we put this sign up, these signs up, but these are signs that you're not in a position to enforce because of the state conflict. And so we are putting out a message to the public that says this is the law, but then you're not in a position to enforce the law, and that makes the police department look less effective, less something, right? It puts you in.
Once the signs are up, there's the expectation of enforcement. And based on the research and the conversations we had with state DOT, they're telling us it's a designated federal truck route. It begins at the state line, or
Right.
the city line, and goes all the way through to, what was Leland Ave.
Right. I get that. That's why you're not.
So we have to ask our federal government.
Exactly.
I think I have the
It's a
floor.
It's a federally designated truck route.
You do.
What it is
Just-
it's meant for them to go onto the extension 790, I think it is.
I understand that part. What I want to drill down on is the idea that what you don't want to do is create an expectation amongst our citizenry that there's a law that the Utica Police Department is simply choosing for whatever reason to ignore. That's what you're concerned about, is that we make you put up signs, and then those are signs that you're not going to enforce for the reasons that you've already laid out, and then that just sort of further deteriorates your relationship to the public in a sense. Is that a good?
You're next.
I do. And
Okay.
To the councilman's credit, he's got a serious problem.
Yeah, he does.
And we
Yeah.
want to address it.
Right.
It's just that the expectation of enforcement is there once the sign's up. And going to the city charter, if you look through the city charter, there have been laws in the past that are just not legal, like curfew laws.
No.
They've been declared unconstitutional.
But they're still on the books.
They're still on the books. So my concern is passing laws that don't hold the muster when it comes to being legal.
Right. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Councilman Lomatico, you have the floor.
Right, I was just, as Councilman Miola was about to mention, and I was about to mention earlier, is that I think we're going about, I mean, this is fine, I'll back you on this, Joe, I have no problem, I'll sign off on this. But I think we're going ass backwards on this. I think if this is a federal highway, the first person we should be contacting is our congressman, for him to contact the federal people to see how we could get that changed. I think right now we're on the wrong level right now. This is something that we should talk to Anthony Brindisi about, to see what, who he needs to contact, to see if we could get that redesignated to a city street, no longer a truck route.
I want the Republican to make sure he gets the credit.
Here we go.
That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Madam Chairman,
It's a good point, Jack.
Madam
Judge, you have the
Chairman,
floor.
if I may,
You may.
I'll give the floor up.
for the benefit of Mr. Beatrice, Councilman Beatrice, the Corporation Council of the City of Utica believes that it's a federal byway. Common Council of the City of Utica, John Aurelio, who I've talked to about this extensively, we've seen some literature that says that. It conflicts with our charter. Now, actually, the suggestion of Mr. Councilman Domenico actually makes a lot more sense. That we do have representatives that they do have exemptions all the time. That this goes through a residential area and exempt it. And please just do that. They do everything else. And they do that in the Congress of the United States for little sections of this country all the time. Believe me, it's not a big deal. And Congressman Brindisi should be contacted with this and put it to him and Mr. Schumer. Why not do that? And then relieves the chief of police of the burden of trying to enforce something he thinks may not be enforceable, and it relieves the Corporation Council, in their opinion, which I don't challenge, that we have looked at literature that says it is a federal byway, right? That's got cheap. I've seen the same literature, and so there it is. It conflicts. I would suggest maybe you ought to put the resolutions in committee, and the letter should be drafted to
No.
the congressman. Or put up the signs.
Yes.
Let's
We'll
vote
put
on the
up the signs and
resolution
go to the-
and send it along with our letter.
Yes.
So we're all
Or
behind
put
it,
up the
hopefully.
signs and then
Yeah.
send a letter.
Yes,
Either one. Maybe it'll discourage some from going down that road.
right.
President Galimi has the floor.
I just wanted to stress, we brought this up before. Currently, 5S, as it goes through downtown Utica, is obviously under major construction. I would just suggest, I was going to say, Councilman DeBrango suggested about the letter, that Brindisi, those are all great suggestions. We, as a council, whatever's done, we should time this such that it mentions the fact that once that construction is concluded, there will be another viable route. Because that's a big part of the problem right now. If a truck does come off the thruway and they look at their map, if they make a left, there's insane amounts of construction to go to Herkimer. If they make a right, they just go over Herkimer Road. So, right, exactly. So my point is, once all of that construction concludes as well, that it'd be a very good time to attack that.
No, I think we should.
I mean, no, attack it now. I'm saying the letter. If you're going to talk to, my point is, if you're going to talk to if you're going to talk to a trucking company now,
Yeah, and we gotta force the issue, because.
absolutely.
You set it up to it's gonna become a political football. We're gonna set it up, make them make it.
I agree with that, but my point is, writing the letter, talking to the construction companies or the trucking companies once 5S is ready, that'll also be very valuable, because they will want to go the other way. I'm good.
Okay.
Can I put my
And-
name on it? And that-
Yeah.
Well, the resolutions, they take 5 votes.
I believe it's full council.
Yeah, and all you need is 5 votes, as the judge said, so,
Okay.
yeah, moving forward.
All right, next resolution is resolution number 7. It's issues negative declaration for proposed downtown Utica parking improvement project. Ryan, did you want to speak on that one?
Yeah, back in, I believe it's June, this council acted on a resolution designating yourself as lead agent for the purposes of SEEKR. That's the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's a step that needs to take place before any funding can be implemented. The city has access to 1.5 million to address downtown parking, but we need to finish the SEEKR process in order to access those funds through DASNY, Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. There was a coordinated review. The environmental information was sent to DASNY as well as the State Historic Preservation Office and the Department of Transportation. None of those agencies had any issue with the city's plan. The 1.5 will construct a new surface parking lot under the Genesee Street overpass in between Bag Square East and West. It will also purchase parking access and revenue control systems for our garages and our lots. And we'll also purchase and install pay stations along Genesee Street and around the state and county office building as well. So really, there are no environmental impacts, and that's what this resolution tonight says. You're acting as lead agent and just stating that there are no negative impacts.
Thank you.
So
Councilmember Miola, you have the floor.
Mr. Thomas, I just want to read into the record that this doesn't include any diagonal parking whatsoever for Genesee Street.
It does not.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Williamson.
I mean, you can trust, but how do we verify that everything's correct?
Well, I've shared everything that I sent to the various state agencies with all of you by email. I've shared the correspondences that we received back.
6 months down the road, right?
What's that?
We're not gonna find something that we're not supposed to find in it when we develop.
No.
There's no possibility of anything coming back from ours.
All the documentation is included with this, so if you do have
Yeah.
questions, you want to look it over longer, that's up to the council.
I'm just asking, I mean, 'cause I know you probably did more homework than I did on it. I just wanna know that there's nothing that can bite us down the road, that's all.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Follow it to the T.
Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
What's your timeline on this, Commissioner, in terms of when you need us to vote on this?
The money's been there for a while. It's only gonna last so long, particularly given the state budget issues.
If we put it off by 2 weeks, it is a very complicated, long document.
It is, but you've had it for a considerable amount of time now. I prefer to move sooner
Okay,
rather than
okay.
later.
Is this the area where I'm thinking, when I go to the Taylor and the Cook, is it that underpass there?
Yeah.
It's sort of just behind the Taylor. So when you go down and
It's the
around
old John
PJ
Street.
Green's to get to Taylor and the Cook, it's the one that you pass before you get up to Taylor and the Cook, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay,
It's the one
thanks.
that goes over the bridge that goes over the.
Right, yep, right. But that, you know what I'm talking, yeah. Okay, all right, thank you, I'm good. I'll
Madam Chairperson, I would like to ask the Commissioner a question.
Council President, you have the floor.
Okay, and this is also in parallel to what Councilman Miola asked about the diagonal parking. This is only for pay stations, only for parking garage pay stations, and only for that surface lot. This has nothing to do with any reconstruction of Genesee Street.
Correct.
Okay.
The boulevarding of Genesee Street is under the DRI, the $10 million downtown revitalization initiative.
Right.
That's separate from this.
Right. Okay.
Any other concerns?
Mr. President, or Madam President, or Maria.
Chairperson.
May I add something?
That's Heather Moe.
One of the concerns the administration has is this is grant funding for the state of New York. And, you know, we're very concerned that if we don't get some of the grants that we've already been awarded under construction and moving, that they could be taken from us. And this one, and Brian can go into a little more detail, is quite old. And so we're just very concerned that we'll lose the money if we don't get it moving. So Brian, you just want to talk about a little bit where this money came from and how old it is?
This goes back to, I believe, Governor Pataki, back in 2008, 2009. There was originally $5.5 million. The state has already taken some of that, and what we're left with is $1.5 million. So we'd like to get this underway as soon as possible, before this money's lost as well. If you remember, the 5.5, it was originally, the original plan for that 5.5 was to build a parking garage in concert with the central hub behind Adirondack Bank Building. For a variety of reasons, the parking garage never took place, but the central hub did move forward.
Okay, so there is a time urgency.
No, it used all the grant funds.
All right, we are good with that one. We will go to ordinance number 8. It is Councilman Beatrice, no parking at all times. Are you good with this one?
Yes, I'm good with it.
Okay. Anything we want to talk about in the committee of the whole?
Yeah, did we ever get that legislation from Carol Katz from,
That one is actually in the codes committee. In the committee of the whole, we have adopting a new zoning plan, convenience store license, essential workers way, the original one, and the PH to adopt the zoning plan.
Are we pulling this one since we got the new one, ordinance 14?
I think we might just let it die there. The convenience store license, is that one we want to discuss?
well, we got a lot of questions. I mean, I think when we had our meeting with the mayor,
So I could pass it as is, then amend it after, or?
Who had the meeting with the mayor?
Yeah. Who had a meeting with the
The
mayor?
majority leader and the minority leader, but I was not there for that one. So,
I'd like to be involved as well, I mean, it's part of public safety.
I think before we pass anything, if we're gonna amend it, we should amend it here before it goes out to a vote. And I have some, did I speak out of turn, by the way? I'm sorry, I didn't ask.
no,
for the
you,
floor.
you can,
Okay, I think there's couple things that I would like added to that before we pass it. I'll give you a couple ideas that I have. Number one, I think the fine that they're putting to these stores is absurd. And the reason I'm gonna tell you it's absurd, the reason is the fine, what we're trying to do for the majority of these stores that are doing anything wrong, that fine is made up in 5 minutes.
You mean the
okay?
fee?
The fee.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the fee, okay? You can make, if you're doing something illegal in one of those stores that we're trying to take care of, they can do something in the back room, I don't have to go into detail, we all know what I'm talking about. They can pay that fine in no time at all, or the fee in no time at all. You do have probably a handful of legitimate stores that, to me, are being penalized by this. So I'm not for that at all. My other point that I think we should do is I think we should just set a curfew, okay? With the exception of gas, okay? I think there should be an 11 o'clock curfew and go with it from there. That's just something, a couple of my ideas.
I got a few ideas.
And I just think we should talk about that before we do anything.
I don't have a idea for it, I don't want to put anything out like that, but I do have a procedural note that I'd like to make. Okay, we had like 9 committee meetings on the feral cat situation.
yeah.
I just suggest maybe the council call a committee meeting. on this.
I'd like to have a committee
Yeah.
meeting about this.
Exactly.
I'd like
That's
to have,
great.
I've got a whole bunch of questions as well. Some of them are similar to what Joe just raised, but there are the whole bunch of issues with that legislation. We need to have a committee meeting about this. Would that be codes or public safety or a co-committee?
Currently, it's in the committee of the whole. I was just seeing if anybody wanted to discuss anything now because we had some
I
time.
think we need to have we gotta have a meeting just dealing with this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
We're not gonna shove it into a sock of 20 minutes,
Right.
Correct.
all right? So I think we should have another meeting that whoever the code, yourself and the codes person come together and say, hey, we're gonna have a meeting, everybody can attend, or at least most of us.
Don't forget,
If you want
Could-
to, right?
Yeah, if you could invite me,
Could we do this before the next council meeting on September 16th, 5 o'clock?
Yeah, we're gonna.
I'm not the chair of either of those committees,
I
but
don't, nobody assigned it to anywhere, so I'm not making any comments.
All the committees have all the
You
people
wanna
on
do
them,
them.
so if you just call a committee of the whole
you
meeting,
take it.
That's fine.
with that as
Do
the
it that.
agenda, you guys can do it.
I think we might need even more than an hour to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, so
Right.
I would suggest either 4 or 4:30 if we're gonna do it before the
I
meeting.
think that's a good idea.
I think we just
On a
go page by
Wednesday?
page and,
Right.
and
So
have
I could
Brian
do it
Thomas,
4:30.
have the codes, Heather, whatever.
I think the
Can you
police department
set
would
that
want to
up
be here
for
for
Page
that.
by page.
That's fine. At 4 o'clock?
No, I agree. 4 o'clock. I can do 4 o'clock. yeah.
Republic.
I can't do 4,
blaming you
but I
on
can
this
be
one.
4:30.
Even if you're a little bit,
We can.
If the council anticipates actually generating something that's considerable for the floor out of that committee meeting, assuming it generates potential amendments, et cetera, that have to be referenced, potentially discussed with Corporation Council, I would suggest having the committee meeting prior to the council meeting on a different day. That way, if you do come up with something substantive as far as change, you can actually communicate that to either Judge Garamone or Corporation Council so that by the council meeting, you'll have something to work with. That's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm available 1 week from today, on the 9th, at 5 o'clock, and then we could do 5 to 7 next Wednesday, just on this, following the president's suggestion. Is anybody listening to me? Anybody out there at all? No, it's just me.
It also doesn't have to be decided
Just
now.
me and Marcus. Marcus
Yeah,
heard
well,
me.
meeting.
we'll send an email out and see what works best
Okay.
for everybody.
I,
Yes, you have the
You know,
floor.
when we did have our talk, you know, myself, the minority leader, and, with the mayor, we kind of agreed that, you know, we should support this and move forward. However, we need to make a lot of changes, but we need to get them moving on at the administrative level, because before anything goes into law, it's gotta be passed by us. So, the thing is, you know, they gotta get their movement permit going and everything else, they got the letters out and everything else. However, you know, nothing's gonna change at the end of the day until we approve it, so.
Well, I just, at the beginning of the meeting though, I'd like Marcus to get in front of us and to discuss this and why it was put together the way it was. Then from there, we can make the, you know, then we can decide.
But you
Well,
gotta do a
you at least
public
gotta give
comment.
the codes people a chance to present it to us, and then, once you're done, then maybe we go into, you know, maybe we could find out some reasons
And the
exactly why.
police.
And the police.
And the police.
And the PD.
And the public comment, right? And the public comment here, Bob? Public comment? Are they here, Bob?
Councilmember Moody, you have the floor.
Now, these, the timing and the cameras and all of that aspect, that's a separate ordinance, or should we look at both in the same meeting?
Cameras for the convenience store? It's right in there.
No, I meant I didn't see it in this one.
It's not in this one. Nope, it's a separate piece of legislation. I've heard
Majority
word of it.
Leader Heather Mowat is requesting the floor when Councilman Moody's
Okay.
finished.
I'm done.
So yes, I think they should both be discussed in the same meeting. Heather, you have the floor.
I don't know if this is the proper time or not, but what we did talk about is we have to have a public hearing, which involves the public, gives their input. So I don't know if you consider at least getting a public hearing moving so that we can give a public hearing, because you might hear something from the public hearing that you then want to incorporate what you may consider passing. So that's for tonight, also, I believe. Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, Heather, what you're talking about is for the zoning ordinance. They're
Yeah,
talk-
it's
They're
different.
talking about the convenience store legislation, which doesn't require a public hearing.
Right.
This one doesn't?
No, it does not.
Convenience store does not.
I would like to, though, to,
However, if I could,
Yeah.
sorry,
it's okay.
they are intertwined. The convenience store legislation came out of my department because of the rezoning, the new zoning ordinance amendment.
Can I ask then, Commissioner, why wasn't this simply folded into the new green ordinance? The green code
Because
update?
it's not a zoning, it's a permit.
It's a code.
It's a separate section.
It's a
of the
code
ordinance.
section, right, okay.
It's not a zoning.
That makes sense, thank you. I'd like to reinforce that what Councilman Moody was saying. I think that we ought to look, there's another piece of legislation out there being drafted somewhere upstairs. I haven't seen it, that has to do with cameras and hours for these convenience stores. I'd like to look at both at the same time. So if that piece of legislation could make its way to the council where all of us could look at it, I would find that very helpful.
The cameras, you meaning what, the stores have to have cameras?
Yes, and there's a separate piece of legislation in draft, is that right, Mr. Phillips?
From what I understand, it's a piece of legislation that, actually had existed before in front of the council. There's been some amendments, and it exists.
It's out there.
Somebody's gotta get
It's
it,
floating.
introduce it. Yeah.
Right.
So are we gonna see that when we have this meeting?
Maybe
That's what I'm
I can
asking.
try to get it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ultimately, find a councilperson to sponsor that so that we can,
I'll
yeah,
sponsor.
yeah, somehow, just so we can have it.
Well,
Council-
I mean, can I just send it to you and you see? when
Well,
you-
to the clerk, yeah, just through the normal
Send it to the
process, yeah,
clerk, yeah.
exactly. Okay.
Councilmember Miola.
Don't forget, council members, this is the first time out for this legislation in this
Yeah.
area. So it's in an infancy stage right now, and there will be changes that we're going to see that are coming down from the corporate council and stuff like that within this legislation, so.
Look at it again.
Right, and there's changes that we want to make, so there's going to be changes all over the place on this piece of legislation. I mean, I understand that you guys want to start with the best pieces possible, so we'll vet it. But after that, I mean, it's going to be a trial and error kind of thing with this piece of legislation, so, all right? Thank you.
So as of right now, we're going to schedule a committee meeting. We're all going to get together and we're going to put our ideas together and we'll figure that out through email.
Okay, thank you,
Correct.
council.
Madam Chairman,
Judge Garone, you have the floor.
just an aside for, that leaves my mind. We do have the Corporation Council represented here. There's a section of the zoning law that is section 229-123, which Thomas is familiar with, and that's amendments and procedures. There's a whole itinerary that you must follow regarding this zoning initiative that has been submitted to you. And the order in which they are done as far as public hearings, where the references go, when you can adopt, are all set forth in this statute. And you can't jump around with it. You have to follow the statute. Now, I'm going to provide you, each of you, with a copy of the statute between now and next week, but rather very soon. I'll make copies of it. I'll submit it to every one of you, including the president. I'll have you examine it, and I want you to understand that that procedure and the way it's set forth in the statute is the way you have to proceed. You can't go back and forth with the planning board as they see fit or you see fit. You have to follow the statute as to that. And I'm not going to go into that now because I'm not going to read a whole statute here. I'm going to give you copies of it so you can look at it, and then you will know the procedure you must follow. And I'm sure the president is aware of that, and I will send him a copy. I know Mr. Thomas is. So before you got off the zoning thing tonight, it was one of my intentions telling you, because we're still in a state of flux with that zoning matter. We're still in a state of flux as to any amendments to that zoning matter. And I want you to understand the statute, because if you misstep and you do a change, it's challengeable. And if you did it improperly, it's going to be reversed. So it's my job to make sure that you do things according to the law. And of course, that I never do it without consulting with the Corporation Council of the City of Utica, who's aware of this. And so the Corporation Council and I will be in complete coordination on this matter, so that you do everything you're supposed to under the statute, and the planning board also. I'm sorry for taking your time on this matter at this time, but I think it's essential tonight that you know that, because I'm going to provide it to you within the next few days. Okay?
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing me to do that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Does anyone have anything else that they want to discuss?
Can
in the
I-
last 15?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to floor for a second. Last meeting, we had all these legislations, and I sat there and I had a packet in front of me. And then we went around, and each council person introduced their own legislation. I just thought it would be easier if the president or the clerk would read them, unless you really want to do your own legislation, I understand. But I sat there and I had my packet, there was 20 or 21, and I read everything ahead of time, and then when we talked about it, I just found it confusing for myself, and if an outsider's looking in, I just thought it would be a lot easier if the president or the clerk, and I haven't discussed it with them, but if they would read it ahead of time, so. But that's just my, you know, that's all, but thank you.
Yep.
Can I bring up something?
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to, and then I know that Councilman DeBrango wanted to say something, I think. I'd like for us to talk about bringing the public back in. The current law, the current governor's mandate allows 50 people to be together in a room. This room can, sorry.
Let me turn my mic off.
So I knew that Frank had this idea, and I knew if Frank had this idea, it must be good, so I thought I would talk about it. So that I think it's time to bring the people back in, so. And, yeah.
I just want to say a few things on this. New act regarding the repeal of 58 of the Civil Rights Law public hearing. I know we've been discussing when we should have the public hearing. I understand last meeting, the Corporation Council, I can't remember which one, said that there's going to be a law passed that they're allowed 50 people in this building, maybe by the next meeting. So, is that correct?
I believe it's now, it's just, we're under the current executive order by the mayor, but that's negotiable. We could talk to the mayor about that.
I want the public input on this. I want them here. I want them up in front of the mic. I want to hear what they have to say. But also, I do want them to have access to the internet and send any emails to our clerk as well if they have any concerns about this civil rights law. So if you want to, we can schedule it, the public hearing on September 16th. We can hold off. You know, September 16th is the next meeting. If you want to hold off, it's up to the council here. So you let me know what you want to do, but I do want to get the ball rolling on this a little bit. I noticed that the mayor did form a committee regarding this, and so it's a good step, but I do want this council to have some input as well.
I'm all for
I'm
it.
willing
Want
to,
do it on the 16th, or we want to wait till?
Councilman DeBrango, I'm willing to get the executive order that currently allows 50 people, et cetera, and work with the building staff to make sure that we organize the audience section
6
such
foot.
that it's all in accordance with CDC guidelines, if the council would like to do so.
Councilman DeBrango, would you mind making it for the first meeting in October? Because it gives everybody a chance to email, it'll give everybody a chance to make sure that we can get the residents in the building, so everything could be organized by then.
That's fine, that's fine.
Madam Chairwoman?
We'll pull the date for that, so that if you pull the public hearing, we'll have the date.
That'd be the
before.
7th.
7th? October 7th? Okay.
Is everybody agreed with that? Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
I'm good.
Councilperson Friend, do you have the floor?
One of the things that's been really good about the way in which we've done business, that we're now live through WebEx and on YouTube, I'd like that to nonetheless continue, even when we bring people back into the room. It makes it possible for people who have disability issues, people for whom traveling in the evening is difficult, maybe they have young children, et cetera, to also stay engaged. So I'm hoping that when we bring the public back in person, we also carry on with all of this.
The live feed is permanent,
Okay, great.
definitely. Mhm.
Okay, what else we got?
That's it.
That's it, all right.
Meeting adjourned?
I move
There a
that
second?
adjourn it.
Okay, I'm just gonna close the audio on the room, kill the live feed. Meeting to order on September 2nd, City of Utica Common Council. Clerk will call the roll.
McNeil, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Moody, Beatrice, Williamson, Lemetico, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. First order of business this evening is public hearing. We do have a public hearing this evening. It's for the adoption of the discontinuance of a portion of Burstone Road, arterial, in the city of Utica. Clerk, did we receive any emails and or correspondences from the public?
I did not receive any correspondence.
Council people, any correspondence from the public? Okay. That public hearing is now closed. Next order of business, the minutes. Have the minutes been dispensed, clerk?
Could I move to waive the reading of the minutes, please?
Okay, we have a motion to waive the reading of the minutes. We have a second from Councilman DeBrango. Any opposed to waiving the reading of the minutes? No one's opposed. The minutes have been dispensed. Now we move into miscellaneous communications and or cash reports. Clerk?
We have the cash report from the city controller. The cash report for July 2020 totals $30 million received and filed.
Thank you very much. Do we have any communications from the mayor?
No communications from the mayor.
Thank you very much. Petitions, remonstrances, appeals, and legislation from the floor. First District. Council Member and Majority Leader Maria McNeil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just wanted to say good luck to all the students returning back to school. It's a very different time. 2020 has brought a lot of challenges for everyone, the teachers and the students and the parents this year included. So I just wanted to wish everybody good luck and, be a little more forgiving if, we're all trying to work through this together. So good luck with that. Following that, I'd like to start off with resolution number 1. It is the resolution authorizing the adjustment to the 2020-2021 solid waste service charges. Move to pull this.
Okay. Just gonna bring that legislation up on the screen here. Still a little behind from that crash earlier, sorry.
Do you want me just to read it quick?
Oh, hang on. Hold on. And there it is. Thank you very much. All right, there's a motion on the floor from Councilwoman McNeil to move the resolution authorizing the adjustment to the 2020-2021 solid waste service charges. Is there a second to move that?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Friend. Would you like to read that now? Thank you.
Whereas pursuant to Section 1, Subdivision 12 of Local Law Number 1 of 1990, a person may appeal a determination made regarding the levy of the solid waste service charge. And whereas said local law further provides that we are an applicant involves the request for a refund plus interest or modification of the solid waste service charge after the bill for same has been sent, such application must be approved or disapproved by the Common Council. And whereas the following applications have been made and William A. Rabia, Executive Director for the Oneida Herkimer Solid Waste Management Authority, as the acting agent for the City of Utica, has reviewed same and recommended approval thereof. Resolved, the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby approves the application for adjustment to the City of Utica solid waste service charge for the fiscal year 2020-2021 as follows. See attached list.
Your votes.
Eight yeas adopted.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I'd also like to move resolution number 7, issues negative declaration for proposed downtown Utica parking improvement project.
Is there a second?
Councilman,
Okay, second is Williamson.
Whereas 1.5 million in state funding have been made available to the city to address downtown parking, and whereas the city have put together a comprehensive plan for the funding that provides for the creation of additional parking to serve the Bag Square neighborhood and Lower Genesee Street, while also providing for the critical equipment upgrades for public on-street and off-street parking areas aimed to improve access and revenue control. And whereas compliance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act is required before the city can approve with its plan, and the grant funding can be released by the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, the Common Council at its June 3rd, 2020 meeting resolved to act as lead agent for the proposed of seeker review and declared the project to be a type 1 action under seeker, thereby requiring coordinated review. And whereas the Department of Urban and Economic Development conducted a coordinated review on behalf of the City of Utica Common Council, sending all required documents to the various involved agencies, including the State Historic Preservation Office and the State Department of Transportation and the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. None of the involved agencies took issue with the Common Council acting as the lead agent. Additionally, none of the involved agencies indicated any significant impact to the environmental anticipated as a result of the city proposed downtown parking plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica, New York has reviewed the full environmental assessment form, parts 1, 2, and 3, together with the correspondence submitted by the involved agencies. On the basis that the proposed downtown Utica parking improvement project will not result in any negative environmental impact, and the City of Utica Common Council does hereby issue a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Should be 9 days, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all for me this evening.
All right, District 2, Councilman Burmaster, you have the floor.
Okay, we have an order, I'm sorry. We have a discontinue of Burstone Road.
All right, so Councilman Burmaster is moving the legislation in which we had the public hearing this evening for. It is the discontinuance of portions of Burstone Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to read that, or would you like me to summarize?
You
All right,
can go
thank
ahead
you.
and summarize it if you don't
All right, an
mind.
ordinance designating a section, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong piece here. There we are.
17.
The first one in the packet.
Yes, my laptop is all sorts of screwed up for some reason, I apologize. Ordinance providing for the discontinuance of a portion of the Burstone Road arterial highway for street purposes and the sale of the same. Whereas the parcel of real property described below has been listed as a city street on the official map of the City of Utica, and whereas the parcel has been found unsuitable for municipal purposes, and whereas it is in the best interest of the city that such parcel shall be discontinued for street purposes and property be sold to the adjoining landowner. And whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to Section 101 of the Second Class Cities Law, Section 29 of the General City Law, and Section 9005 of the Charter of the City of Utica on September 2nd, 2020. Whereas the Planning Board has submitted no objection, or the time to submit any objections to this matter has expired. Further ordained, the official map of the City of Utica is hereby amended, and the city engineer is hereby authorized and directed to cause all copies of the official map of the City of Utica and the tax of the City of Utica to be amended in accordance with this ordinance. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much. Anything else this evening, Councilman Burmaster?
Not at this time, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Third District, Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple pieces of legislation that I'm going to bring out. First, I just want to comment on sort of one of the byproducts, sort of casualties of the pandemic, is that this is the year 2020, and as such, it is the 100th anniversary of women in this country getting the right to vote. And if it weren't for the pandemic, we'd all be really aware of that, because there would have been lots of occasions and ways in which that fact would have been marked. I was really lucky. A week and a half ago, there was an artist in town who's doing an artistic exhibition in Brooklyn about this fact, and part of what she wanted to do for her art exhibition was to have audio of the chants that women would have, that the suffragettes, the women and men who advocated for women's right to vote, would have chanted. And so we all met up behind the Parkway Center, and she recorded. I got about 15 or so people together, and we chanted the chants that she fed us, and she recorded them, and she's going to be putting them into an art exhibition down in Brooklyn that'll run from October to December. So I do think it's notable. I think we should all note that that there are 100 years out from women getting the right to vote, and there are still only 2 elected women in this room. Although we think of ourselves as formidable, nonetheless, there are only 2 of us, and it took 100 years for women to have the right to vote, and yet there are still only 2 elected women on the Common Council. So at my calculation, another 350 years, and we'll get some equality going. So, okay, that said, I have 2 pieces of legislation I'd like to bring out.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
How many elected women in the city of, in the Common Council race, how many people were on the ballot which were women in the last Common Council race?
Oh, geez, and 2.
So I think 100% of the women were elected.
No, 3.
3?
3.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Including the president.
Well, that's
4.
4?
4.
That's right. Oh, I did as well. Okay.
Judy Galimo, Honda Grabovica, and the 2 of us.
So we've got a lot of activity, and I would say a majority of you were elected, so I say that's pretty good.
I think there's pretty much parity. It's just that the guys won. What can I tell you?
That's not where I was going, but I wanted to congratulate all the women who did run.
Yes.
Was my point.
Yeah,
encourage
and it is, you know, Utica is Utica, and there's a bigger world, and in the world at large, we do see very much increased activity of women running for office. There was a record number of women sworn into Congress this year, or not this year, but in 2018, right? So in January of 2018, a record number of women joined the House of Representatives in Washington. So
I just wanted to recognize that.
Yeah,
All right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. President. Okay, Ordinance 2. So intersections where stop required. Ordained that Section 216358 Schedule C, intersection where stop required, is amended to include the following: Emerson and Howe Street, northeast corner, to control westbound traffic on Emerson Ave. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected when necessary.
Do we have a second? Okay, Burmaster with the second. Your votes, please.
9 E's adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I also have ordinance number 4, please.
It's on the screen.
Be it ordained that the Common Council for the City of Utica does hereby grant to Leila Bjornland of 325 Lamont Place in the City of Utica permission to erect an 8-foot fence along the side fence line at the above said location, and there is an attached map.
Second?
Second.
We have a second from Williamson. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr.
Thank
President.
you very much. 4th District, and President Pro Temp, Frank Miola.
Thank you, Mr. President. We were chatting earlier today, the clerk and I, and some of the old language and some of the old information that the council used to get fell through the cracks, and it was way before our new clerk got in there. I don't know, some of my colleagues might remember, we used to get these claims forms, a sheet of paper, informing us who's filing a claim against us, who's suing us. So our clerk now is going to give us a list and update all the council members on those pending lawsuits that are against the city of Utica. So it's just good information that we need to know, and it's good information that we need to look at in our daily business. So we're going to be receiving that soon. Secondly, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a lot of people on the city streets walking. They're home, they got nothing to do, and a lot of areas of our city, we don't have sidewalks, especially in North Utica, different areas on Parkway. So I'm going to ask my council, I'm going to think about legislation in the future. I don't know if you guys can help me out with this, but maybe we could put signs up in those areas that don't have sidewalks. Maybe caution pedestrian and children on roadway, something to start warning the drivers that there's a lot more people and a lot more children walking on our streets than before. A lot. I would say at least 50% more. My block is loaded with them, especially after 5 o'clock. Maybe when they get done eating, they want to do a little tracking, a little walking. So it's great. I do believe that we need to start warning the drivers as much as possible that there are more people on our city streets because, we don't have sidewalks in some areas of the city, and we just need to post that. Other than that, council, it was really good meeting that we had already, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Fifth District, Councilman Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to first say that Cornhill in the 5th District and really all over the city of Utica, we've been seeing a tremendous uptick in shootings. And it's not, it seems like every year we're back at this place. And it's no fault of the UPD alone or anything like that. But, my heart and my mind is really troubled that every time I get a text from the chief about another person shot in the community. And so I said all that to say that this police reform advisory board that the mayor put together, the public safety hearing that we're going to have is so needed in this moment, because it's not just about Black Lives Matter or the shooting of unarmed people. And I also want to commend the Utica Police Department that dealt tremendously well with the person who was armed, right? And that did not end in a fatality of that person being shot. So I want to commend the police department on that. But I will say this moment is so vital. And looking at the totality of the picture, not just the police interactions with the community, but also what is incumbent upon us as citizens. And so when I ride up and down in Cornhill and I go to get gas or I go to pick up food, and I have to ride by Oneida Street and see police lined on that street because, again, at a random Tuesday or a random Wednesday, I'm hearing that there's another shooting in Cornhill, it breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart because no ordinance I write is going to change that. No resolution I put on the table is going to change that. No press conference I put up with is going to change that. No matter who's standing beside me, whether it's 20 black pastors or 10,000, it's hard work in terms of how do we actually make sure that these families, these people, the names that I hear, the people that I know, how do we keep them safe? I know that the chief of police probably thinks about that and goes home with that burden every day. That no matter what you do, whether as a council person, chief of police, or mayor, how are we going to keep these streets safe? And so that's a burden that I'm sure you probably all have thought about. I'm new to this, so it's been on my heart. But as the council person representing Cornhill, I just wanted to speak to that because that is a burden that I think about all the time. Whether it's not just the weekend, but any random day that I can get another text about a senseless killing or shooting in my community. And so I don't know if I say thoughts and prayers from the council, but certainly something that I think in the conversation that we're having to talk about how can we prevent crime and other aspects. In other aspects there, I think the Police Reform Advisory Committee, I want to commend the chair, Marcus Phillips, co-chair, Reverend Mary Webster. I think the committee is forming up great. I think we're going to have important conversations to see not just answer national cries, but figure out where the Utica Police Department is and what makes sense in terms of reforming for this city, and not just what the nation is saying needs to be reformed, but what makes sense for Utica. In terms of feral cats, I've been getting a whole bunch of calls, thanks to the Humane Society and others, that are telling folks to just call your councilman. So I guess that's the new thing that they say, call your councilman. But I will say this, I think we're going to have, we need to have a serious conversation as to, in our budget season, that if we're giving a lot of money to these organizations, that we can't just continue to give them $20,000 or $30,000 and they get to just tell us we're not going to pick up these feral cats or whatever. So I think it's a serious conversation to be had. I'm looking forward to having that conversation, and no one has to take the blame for that. I will take the blame for that, as saying that if you take city money, we need a partner in this problem of feral cats. So I'll leave that alone. And the other thing too, which I've been getting calls about, which I would love the support of the council in thinking about, is Marcus Phillips calls it passive community events. And this summer, a lot of people have been wanting to have events in the park, but right now the mandate is that if you do any type of community event, you need $1 million insurance policy and all of that stuff to make sure the city is covered. So I would want to look at ways in which that if a person wants to do just a passive community event in a park, that in some way we can permit that, and also not have a liability, but also that person doesn't have to say, well, I want to just do a book bag giveaway in Kimball Park, for instance, but I don't know, I have no means of getting $1 million insurance policy for one day, and therefore I can't get a permit from the city to do so. I want to look at that in the weeks to come, months to come, and figure out if there's a solution for citizens that just want to do good things in the community in the park. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilman Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to agree with Councilman Miola about the sidewalks. I support you in any way. In my area, North Utica, there's less than a quarter of it has sidewalks. So that being said, I'll support anything you bring up with that. I'd like to take the opportunity to give a heartfelt thank you to the city of Utica and the surrounding area fire departments who responded valiantly and heroically fought the fire that raged Charlestown Outlet Complex on August 27th. As I witnessed these brave firefighters battle this blaze, it reiterated to me the extreme danger they face every time they answer the call, and they do it selflessly and to protect our community. The constituents of the 6th Ward can rest assured that I will work tirelessly with Mayor Robert Palmieri, Frankfort Town Supervisor, local, state, and federal officials regarding the cleanup, repurposing, and mostly assuring the safety and well-being for all the residents in the surrounding communities. Thank you, first responders, for all you do. I'd also like to thank the fire department for, I had another, and the Mary Street fire the week before. You guys did a great job, and I'd also like to commend some of the neighbors who were there to help before you guys got there. You guys been very busy, and what I witnessed last Thursday morning at Charlestown was, it was unbelievable how all the communities came together, and you guys did a great job. Secondly, I'd like to talk a little bit about some legislation that I'm going to bring out tonight regarding on Herkimer Road. It's been a major problem in my district for years, and one of the things I mentioned in caucus, and I'm going to mention it here again, is after last week, I got calls that the city should have did something about Charlestown 25 years ago. Well, obviously, I don't want that to be on Herkimer Road when we have a massive accident, whatever. I just don't want that done. I'm trying to be proactive. And all I'm trying to do, I want to reiterate this, I'm not trying to stop any commerce on Herkimer Road. Trucks are welcome all day long if they have local business on Herkimer Road. I'm just trying to stop the traffic, the damage to the residents' homes, and moving on with that, okay? And lastly, before I bring out my legislation, I'd like to thank the City of Utica Engineering Department for the cleanup. I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but there was 3 or 4 streets they were worrying about getting done. They were getting the money to get that done, and those streets have been taken care of. They're finishing them up right now. I do have a bunch of pictures I probably will post on my Facebook page, but in all the years I've lived in North Utica, I've never seen the cleanup in these cricks that I've witnessed. So hopefully we just follow up and keep it that way. And then I'd like to bring out resolution number 5. Okay, the resolution calling for the proper signage to be placed where appropriate regarding Section 2-16-373, Schedule R, heavy trucks, other than freight motor deliveries prohibited. Whereas 2-16-373, Schedule R of Utica City Code states that heavy trucks, other than freight motor trucks, are prohibited from the following named streets or parts of the streets: Herkimer Road, from North Genesee Street east to the city line. Be it resolved, the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby calls for the proper signage be placed where appropriate on Herkimer Road to indicate its inclusion in Schedule R.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Councilman Miola. Your votes on Resolution 5.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay, next I'd like to propose resolution number 6. Resolution calling for the proper signage to be placed where is appropriate. Section 2-16-372, Schedule Q, through freight motor truck routes. Whereas Section 2-16-372, Schedule Q of the City of Utica Code states that the following through freight motor trucks routes are established: eastbound, North Genesee Street to Oriskany Street, west to North Genesee Street to Art Ave to Herkimer Road and City Line. City limits through Riverside Drive to Herkimer Road and North Genesee Street to Broad Street and City Line. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby calls for proper signage to be placed where most appropriate on Herkimer Road to indicate its inclusion in Schedule Q.
Councilman Miola has his hand up. He is the second on that one. Thank you. It's like an auction house in here. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay, lastly, it's ordinance number 8, no parking at all times. Ordained that Section 2-16-360, Schedule E, no parking at all times, is amended to include the following: Euclid Road east side from Herkimer Road to School Road south side from Euclid Road to Van Rensselaer Road. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected where necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Williamson. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Minority Leader, Council at Large, Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got one question for the Chief Police Department. For the gates on Conklin Park, are they actually locked at night, or is someone locking those?
The Parks Department's supposed to lock those.
They're supposed to, and if they're unsecured for some reason, the question I asked, because I guess there was a fire up there at the Eagle one night. Someone had an actual fire, and I was just curious if you guys are notified, or the question is, you got people going up there late at night if the gates are not they're unsecured.
It's the responsibility of the Parks Department to lock those gates during dusk or 9 o'clock. And in the event that the gates are locked when you get up there, they have a supervisor car, and the zone car has a key to get into the park when they need to. But we also have to keep in mind that we're seeing pedestrians travel up through those parks during off hours, so we are checking when we can.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I mean, it was brought up, there's a lot of commotion going up there in the evening, because it's getting darker earlier, and they're heading up there, because I don't think the gates are getting secured every night.
No, I talked to Mike Seminaro about that as well, and he asked him to do checks, and we did.
Okay. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council at Large, Jack Lemedico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Am I on?
You are on. Your legislation is on the screen when you're ready as well.
I'm on. All right. Well, first of all, as other council people had mentioned, I'd like to really congratulate the Fire Department on the great job they did at the Charlestown complex. I took a ride by there the other day, and it looks like Dresden firebombing went through it. I don't know, Scott, can you give us a little synopsis of what went through, how many guys you had working on it? And people are interested in the overtime as well as at the end.
Yeah, so the fire department was contacted at 1:25 in the morning from a passerby. It was on 5S, reported smoke in the area. When the fire department arrived, they found fire completely consuming one of the rear wings of Charlestown, and it was rapidly spreading through the rest of the facility. So immediately the on-duty deputy chief called for a second alarm that brought all 23 firefighters that were on duty to the fire scene. We operated in conjunction or jointly with Frankfurt Center, Frankfurt, Schuyler, obviously Utica, and Herkimer County Emergency Service, United County Emergency Services. Our goal early on was to try to stop the spread of the fire, but the fire was so large at the time that we just weren't able to stop the spread immediately. We didn't have enough water. We weren't able, due to the setup of the complex, you're not able to get into the spots that you truly need to cut off the fire. So the fire had a huge head start, and we just don't have enough water down there, enough people to keep up with the spread of the fire. The goal was to just keep it to the general area. Throughout the early hours of that fire, we had softball-sized embers going through the air. We had to keep on monitoring the businesses that were close by. We had some spot fires at the top of the Cab V building, bus garages that were down Bernie Bus, things, a couple of other places. We had embers flowing as far as Culver Ave. It was a significant fire, obviously. UPD assisted us greatly. We had mobile command posts there. We had a unified command. We all worked together. The common goal was to just keep the fire contained. That's what we did. Early on, I understood that we were going to be there for a couple days. We're still dealing with hot spots. I was there today at the Charlestown facility walking through with members of DEC, and there's still a couple spot fires still burning in the back of the complex that are on the Frankfurt side. If you guys are familiar with the complex, it's around the pond in that area through there. So, we secured the place on the Utica side as best as we can. It's a very difficult area to secure. I can't remember the last acre. I believe it's 22 acres total. So we would need a ton of fencing, and obviously the city's responsible for about 20% of that overall size of the facility, and then the rest lays in Herkimer County. So it was a significant fire. We were lucky we didn't have any other fires during that time. We did call people back. There's a cost. We're still working on just finalizing the cost of the city. And because we had to leave crews there over a couple days to keep on monitoring the fires. And, obviously during that time we kept on responding to other calls for service too.
All right, and is the New York Fire Authority, are they looking at how it was started? Who's looking into that?
Yeah, so the investigation's being, it's a joint investigation right now. Office of Fire Prevention and Control is in charge of the fire cause and origin determination. And then I believe it's going to be a joint investigation between the town of Frankfurt Police and Utica Police Department.
Do they have any idea when they might come up with a conclusion?
It's it's developing. It's under investigation. We're working closely. At a meeting yesterday, we're keeping in close contact with the Office of Fire Prevention and Control, UPD. I met with them in Herkimer County.
Well, thank you very much. I think you guys did a heck of a job, and just because the UPD and the Utica Fire Department are the two best agencies around, and I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you.
I'm going to be moving an ordinance into it, but just prior to that, I'd just like to mention that as of this date, we've had 2,281 positives for the coronavirus, and we've had 120 deaths. And a lot of the deaths that we've had in Oneida County have been right within our nursing homes, right in the city of Utica. And but I think the city in all, and the people of the city of Utica have really cooperated, wearing their masks and everything, and you don't see too many businesses that have been penalized because of the crowds in there. I also like to congratulate Phyllis Ellis, the United County Director of Health, who's kept her finger on this and has done a heck of a job as the Department of Health Director there. So congratulations, Phyllis, on your award that you did receive last week. Other than that, I'd like to go ahead and move an ordinance designating a section of Kemble Street between Hobart and Grove Place as an essential workers' way.
Would you like to summarize?
I certainly would.
All right.
And when I say essential workers, and a part of this is that, you know, everybody who goes to work every day is an essential worker. Our police department, our fire department, our nurses, our daycare workers, our bus drivers, everybody who's been out there every day, everybody that's had to get in front of this and have to worry about these viruses. But they went to work every day. They did a great job on this, and I'm really proud of all our essential workers. That's why I think this ordinance is so important, because years from now, we're going to look back on this year 2020, and remember, this is the year of the coronavirus. So when they're going down Kemble Street between Hobart and Grove Place, they'll see something up there. It'll just be a little nod. Yeah, I remember that year. Hopefully we don't have too many after that, and hopefully it'll be done by 2020. So here it is. Whereas honoring all essential workers, especially healthcare workers who have worked through the coronavirus pandemic, risking their lives and their families' lives by designating this section of Kemble Street between Grove Place and Hobart Street Essential Workers Way. Whereas New York State has been fighting in the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, since early 2020. Healthcare workers, grocery store workers, letter carriers, package delivery men and women, first responders and law enforcement, teachers, and transportation workers were deemed as essential workers to keep our state operational and safe. Whereas essential workers risk their lives and the lives of their families in order to keep our communities functioning. Some essential workers contracted COVID-19. Some gave COVID-19 to their family members. Some essential workers passed away after becoming ill with COVID-19. The ultimate sacrifice. Whereas the City of Utica wants to honor all essential workers for their ongoing service to our city and state during the coronavirus pandemic. This section designated hereon is adjoining a facility that has many courageous workers therein and is at the site of the former Utica Free Academy where many Utica citizens did attend. Now therefore being ordained that the Common Council of the City of Utica would like to honor and recognize all the essential workers who have placed their own safety at risk while attending to the needs of all Uticans that came under their care. Be it further ordained that the sign shop of the City of Utica shall design and erect signs above and below Kemble Street, should erect signs above or below the Kemble Street sign at the southeast corner of Hobart Street and the southeast corner of Grove Place that designate this area as an essential workers' way.
Second.
We have a second from Councilperson Friend.
Are we going to do a full council on this? Everybody good for a full council? Yeah. I'd like to go full council on
Everyone has
this.
acknowledged their sponsorship. Your votes.
Thank you, everybody, for voting on
Nine
this.
E's adopted.
Mr. President, could I speak to this? I'm
Yeah, you may have the floor. Yeah.
happy to have voted for this. Happy that Councilman Lemetico and Councilman Miola brought this forward. I hope that, you know, I think exactly as Councilman Lemetico said, you know, years from now, people will know the very phrase essential workers because of this virus. I don't think that that was a phrase that was really sort of high up in our list in our vocabulary before. And now we'll know what that means. One of the things that I hope that we come out of this virus with is not just a greater appreciation for the work that they do and the sacrifices they make, but that I hope that that translates into a commitment to pay some of them better. Many of the workers listed here, although not all, are paid very poorly. They are amongst the most poorly paid people in society. Certain healthcare workers do not make enough money, for example. There's not enough money in my opinion. So I hope that this also sort of encourages us to rethink how we reward different kinds of work and to recognize that certain kinds of work come with certain dangers and that those dangers ought to be compensated appropriately. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman, are you yielding your time?
I'm done, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you. Council at Large, Frank DeBrango, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a couple of things I wanted to cover. Obviously, we had that big Charlestown fire, but a lot of the local businesses donated, coffee, drinks, cold drinks, whatever it may have been, food. And I just want to thank the community for reaching out and helping these guys. They're working there, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it may have been. My favorite restaurant, the Marlog restaurant, was there at about 3 a.m. in the morning delivering coffee, and whatever else they needed. So we just want to reach out and let any business that did donate to the fire department, the police department, whoever was down there, we really appreciate that, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's not too many people out there willing to bring some food and beverages. As far as the COVID, I know Jack touched on it a little bit, and I'd also like to thank Phyllis Ellis. I just saw the news tonight. Oneonta had 107 cases. Kids are back to college. They had 107 positive cases. So it's still not over with. I know people may be relaxing a little bit, especially maybe some college kids coming back. So just kind of keep in mind, keep your distance, keep your mask on, do the right thing. I just, worried. We really don't want it coming back. I think our area has done a good job in combating this, and hopefully we can keep it that way. The other thing is, I know we had the fire at Charlestown, but there's been 7 structure fires in the last 2 weeks in Utica. And, these guys and gals are getting beat up there a little bit, but I'm sure they can handle it. I think we got good leadership there, and I do commend the men and women on the fire department for just responding. And, I saw some video, you see it live, how they respond and how they, they go in there and do their thing. And I know I used to do it years ago. Back in the 90s, we had a bunch of fires, but right now we have a rash of them. And I just want to commend the firefighters. And Delvin, I'm glad that you're on that committee, the advisory committee. And hopefully you'll keep us informed. Hopefully we could come up with a good solution regarding the civil rights law. With that said, I'm going to take that resolution number 9, the date of legislation was on 8/12/20, out of committee and bring it to the floor. I got to get a second on that.
We have a second? We have a second from Lomatico.
Okay.
Any opposed from bringing it out of committee? Okay, it's on the floor. It's also on the screen behind you there, so we're ready.
Okay, proposed resolution number 9, the new act regarding the repeal of 50A of the Civil Rights Law, public hearing. We'd like to schedule the public hearing on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. What I spoke to the clerk about is hopefully we'll be able to have some people attend here. We'll have an audience. They can come up and speak at 7 p.m. On the 7th. If they cannot make it, we do have an email that they could send their concerns to, which is cityclerk@cityofutica.com. So when she does advertise for the public hearing, she is also going to include the email. So if anybody wants to get involved, and we would like the public's input, the council, obviously we would like a little hand in this as well, and I'm glad that Delvin is there, and I'm sure he'll keep us informed. So I would like you to support
There's
this
I believe you're
resolution.
offering an amendment to strike September 2nd, replace that with 10/7.
October 7th, 2020.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment? Viola is a second on the amendment. Any opposed to the amendment? Okay, the legislation reads 10/7. Your votes?
Is this vote on the entirety of it?
No, this is just calling for the public hearing.
Can I make it? Never mind. I mean, everybody's voting, but I would like to make an amendment.
To this particular.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your amendment?
To say public hearing on police reform. The 58 Act of Civil Rights is already a done deal. That's already been done by the police, and I think our police department is the first to be transparent in it. It really is more comprehensive about the police reform in general. and not just about 58.
It's also about the fire department, too. They're also bringing out information about reform of police.
But
I think I have a way to phrase this for you.
Yeah.
We're doing this public hearing as a result of the executive order, correct?
right.
So if you'd like to, I'd offer the text of your amendment to read, in reference to the executive order regarding police reform. Or public safety reform, sorry, public
Yeah.
safety reform.
Yeah.
'Cause is it police or is it public safety?
It's
Police.
Public-
It's
It's
really
just
police.
police?
It's police reform, collaboration, and inventive reform. That's what it is.
Okay, so,
But 50A is a smaller topic within police reform.
mhm.
But 50A also covers the fire department records as well.
Correct. Yes.
okay, so for this though, is in reference to executive order regarding police reform, okay?
It is.
I'm asking the council person.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say yes, because the public, by just seeing this, civil rights allow public hearing 50A regarding, they wouldn't even know what it's about, so I think adding that to it, you know,
Okay, perfect.
would help.
Is there a second to that amendment? Well, McNeil actually, yeah, McNeil's the second. Any opposed to that amendment? Okay, so now the legislation reads, for such persons that wish to be heard in reference to the executive order regarding police reform. Your votes on this legislation as amended.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much.
I have nothing further, Mr.
Thank
President.
you. I have a couple remonstrances and repeals, but what I'd like to do is hear the reports from the city officers. I know we have heard from a few of them already, but Chief Ingersoll, do you have anything else to report?
Yeah, I'd just like to take a minute to recognize firefighters' actions and members of the community during the fire at 1013 Mary Street that occurred on August 15th. It was a very fast-moving fire. It happened in the afternoon, and it was such a fast-moving fire that they couldn't get out through regular means, and they were forced to jump from the second floor of the building. So 6 people jumped from the second floor. During that time, some neighbors ran over. They were able to break the fall of a couple of people that jumped, and thereby save them from further injury. There was some horrific injuries out of this fire. Several people required hospitalization. I'm sure we've seen the videos, but the community members really stepped up, and it was very impressive. And we come forward with their names and helping the council person to recognize them, hopefully at a future meeting. The other thing I'd like to say is that during this same fire, when there was people screaming that there was 2 babies trapped inside, we had 2 firefighters attempt to gain entry to the second floor via ladder, and when one of the firefighters entered the room started to flash over, and what that means is that everything in that room simultaneously ignited, so that was the temperatures in excess of 1,000 degrees. And when that happened, his helmet melted, his face piece melted, the shoulder strap and his breathing apparatus started to melt, his turnout gear burned through. So this particular firefighter was very lucky that he wasn't further into the room. He was able to get back out onto the ladder and get out. But I just say that to recognize the lengths at which our people are willing to go to save people. We're not always successful every time, but these are what these guys train to do, and these are the lengths at which they're willing to go for the people that they serve. It's not always recognized, but in this particular fire, it was a very serious issue, and we had a lot of guys step up at that fire. We lost some equipment, which is secondary, but it was really a team effort, and the community really stepped up, and the firefighters stepped up. The same thing with 100 Rutgers Street. We had 120 apartments in a high-rise building. We had a serious fire at 5:30 in the morning, and again, firefighters step up, and they assisted. I can't even keep track of the amount of people that we assisted down the stairs that had to be assisted, carried, things of that nature downstairs that we treated out in front of the building, that private ambulance assisted us with. Again, very lucky there was no fatalities. There were some injuries out of that, but again, the firefighters stepped up. The same thing with Charlestown. Charlestown fire is definitely probably one of the biggest fires that the city has seen. You know, while part of the complex was outside the city limits, it was still a large fire that we responded to, and that our firefighters acted accordingly, and I'd just like to recognize them. Besides that, they still responded to over 1,200 calls for the month of August. So we're a great agency. These guys put out, these men and women put out a lot of great work, and I'd just like to recognize that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Chief Williams?
Regarding the police forum, collaboration and reinventive committee meetings we've been having, I want to personally thank Marcus Phillips as the chair of the committee, as well as Delvin Moody and all the committee members. It's quite a task. I mean, we're asking a lot of these people. 2 meetings each month, you know, 2 to 3 hours each time, so it's taking time out of their personal lives to be part of this. So we appreciate it. One of the things that we have enjoyed during this process is the fact that we are a very progressive police department. We haven't waited for problems to occur before we institute changes to correct them. And part of the committee is to explain what the things we already put in place. So as we go forward, we've started this process several years ago, but community policing and procedural justice need to be incorporated in all our training and our policies as we go forward. We're looking forward to some of the discussions, the recommendations from the committees, and we remain open-minded. I mean, there's always room for change, but we also have to keep in mind we have not seen the civil unrest in our community as we've seen in others. And I think that is a reflection of our public safety departments. So as we move forward, there's always room for improvement, but I'm proud of the police department that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas?
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Phillips?
2 things. First thing is a codes thing. Remind everybody that you're not supposed to be putting bulk green waste out at the curb now. And we're starting to ticket for it. We normally don't. We try to warn, but it's getting to the point where when it gets into this rainy season and you combine it with the falling leaves, it gets in the catch basins and the sewer drains and stuff. So we're starting to ticket people for that, or just abate it, which means we give them notice, we have the Parks Department pick it up, and then they have to pay for the labor that it took to pick them up. So just, it's supposed to be in a barrel or it's supposed to be bundled up. If it's in front of your house, no bulk green waste on the street or at the curb. That's the first thing. The second thing is about the police reform advisory. The public hearing that you guys called for is on 50A. I'm guessing the scope will go a little longer than that. 50A is the personnel records.
Well, actually, we did amend that. The public hearing will be called regarding the actual reform that the committee is for.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's the executive order was huge.
Correct.
And there was a lot of things in it, and there's things that are covering it. So a couple of things I want to say about that, though. 50A was the part talking about personnel records and whether or not the public should have access to individual police officers' personnel records. One of the proudest things I've seen since I've been an employee for the city is there's an article in the Rochester Democrat Chronicle, and it said, "Will the rest of the state follow Utica?" And when I was a kid and I was growing up here, we were always behind. And if somebody was going to follow us, that wasn't necessarily a good thing. And when they were talking about following us, they're talking about, because our police put all their personnel records online as soon as they signed the order. And we were the first in the state to do that. So it's not easy to come to this table and have this chairperson, and I'll echo the chief. I want to thank, and as a chairperson, I would like to echo the chief and thank everybody that's come to the table, because if you're a member of the community that's come to the table, sometimes it's not as easy to look at police officers and tell them the hard truth and then have to live in the community that they police. And sometimes it's not easy to go back to your community and be held accountable for some of the decisions you're going to make on this board. And as police, there's a lot of municipalities that haven't been able to get together their committees because police and members of the community aren't always willing to look each other in the eye and tell each other our truths and work through these issues together. And as soon as we made our first call, the police said we'll do it, and the members of the community said we'll do it. And I think we take that kind of camaraderie and willingness to work together in Utica for granted sometimes. But when you look at what's going on in the rest of the state and the rest of the country, it's something we should all be really proud of. And we should all work together to try to have the safest, most equitable community possible. And if anybody has any questions on how that process is going, everybody's got my number. And if you're in the public and you don't have my number, I'm the codes commissioner, so call the codes department, I'll pick up the phone, okay?
And you always pick up your phone.
I always pick up my phone. I save my number publicly. My cell phone number is on all of my emails. You know, I want people to call me. So, Chief Williams, thanks for bringing your guys to the table. Delvin is representing the Common Council, but there's so many more people that I'm just so glad that they decided to take the challenge, because in this political environment, it's not an easy challenge to take. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If I could just add one thing, we weren't given a lot of guidance when this first came out. We finally got a manual from the governor's office about a little over a week ago. It's 139 pages, and going through the booklet itself, you know, it does favor departments that have accreditation and it incorporates a lot of best practices. So we felt very confident going into the process. But again, we're open for suggestions and we're open for improvement.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few things. The first thing, it's something that the judge brought up earlier. Just overall, I wanted to say a couple things about the zoning update. Commissioner Thomas, when was the last time that was updated? 1992?
92, yeah.
92. So I think it's safe to say that all of these council people, everyone sitting in this room for the most part, sans the judge, have not gone through an entire zoning update process. So what the judge did earlier is he brought out a book, and the deputy clerk already photocopied and distributed Division 6 amendments. It's the authorization, initiation. This is the process. The reason I'm bringing this up is there's been a couple emails, you know, amongst council members, et cetera, where in reaction to some of the people, we've discussed, oh, well, you know, hopefully the planning board will do X, Y, and Z. The ball is in our court right now, and this process, as the judge said, we should all familiarize ourselves with this. I know we've been concerned with the text that's in that zoning text and the zoning map, but the process of how we as a council affect change to that draft so that we can finalize it and pass it is very important, so I hope we do that. The second thing is the map itself. Yes. Is that noted? Okay. Yes, that'll also go out electronically. Thank you. The second thing on that is there have been, now I know, I'm sure many of you have been interacting with the public on this, but I know in particular Councilman DeBrango, Councilman Miola have had some questions and have been chasing down some things on the map already. That map, what things are zoned and how they're zoned, I know Councilman Miola has brought up the fact that no matter how much we talk about this, a lot of people still don't know, one, this is happening, and two, if their property is being rezoned. But in that, we've all walked the city, we've all done campaigns. This is a huge undertaking. I'm basically requesting that we all take our districts, the at-large, help the specific district people, and we do some work where we drive around with that map. You know, just in the district I live, there's a couple things that I've gone around with the map with a couple, you know, with some of the markets, some of the plazas, and I've got some questions. I know there were a couple on Tilden Ave that we had some good questions on. So please, this is huge. Once we do this, it probably won't happen again for another 20 years. So let's get some boots on the ground and go through that map as council people, and maybe make some work for Commissioner Thomas to reply to some questions on that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I met with the commissioner and some of his staff last week, and Chris Lawrence very generously printed me out the large version of the map, which is very nice to have. I've got it on my dining room table right now. I wonder if the commissioner could arrange to print out that large map for every council member.
Sure.
That'd be terrific.
Thank you.
They're much easier. The small map that fits on, the 8.5 by 11 is impossible to read, but I don't know, is it 24 by 36? It's a really big piece of paper, and it's very helpful. So I would recommend that everybody get hold of that.
Thank you, thank you. All right, the next thing, this is something that I've over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 meetings, I keep hearing just perk up in different remonstrances, and it has to do with the fact that this proposal's been floated now for, I think, 15 years, but did come up again. Commissioner Thomas mentioned the fact that there's a proposal to potentially turn Genesee Street into a boulevard. I know, Councilman LaMedico, you had mentioned that in some prior remonstrances. And I know the DRA committee is looking at that. Eventually, that's going to come to the council, but I'm requesting that we as a council potentially maybe put together a resolution and put our thoughts on paper about that proactively, because I don't want to see us in a situation where there's grants awarded due to a DRI process and we're being pushed into potentially having Genesee Street be only 2 lanes. Yeah, so I mean, if we want to talk about that, just wanted to bring it up because it's important. And the last thing is something I would like to ask if you'd like a coordinated meeting, or ask if you guys would like to coordinate a meeting with the county legislators regarding, and this, I don't want to get into the whole debate thing. This is not to do with the hospital project. This, I'm requesting that we look into or potentially meet with our county legislators regarding the parking garage. That is a county proposal at this point. And with everything going on with the coronavirus, there's been a lot of different statements from the county about budgetary measures and where money is going to come from. And at this juncture, even though that is a county project and they're the people leading the proposals to acquire properties and demolish properties, et cetera, that is still our, we represent that portion of the city very much so right now. So, if anyone wants to reach out to me, or if you guys want to put together a meeting with the legislators, I think we should get together with the county and figure out where that project is going, because currently it's not, how are we going to fund it? There's many different questions. I think if we sit down with the legislators, it might be a good idea. Just food for thought. And other than that, I'd like to second everything everyone said about all of the departments regarding the Charlestown fire. That was probably the biggest, would you say it's the biggest fire we've seen in the city limits in probably 50 years? And
Quite some time, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hard work went into that, and it did affect a lot of the community. And thank you to everyone who dealt with that. That's all I've got. If someone wants to make a motion to adjourn. Oh, would you like the floor? Okay.
I just want to give a shout out to Assembly Person Mary Ann Buttonshine. She does a weekly event, and this week and next week she's going to be at the Polish Community Club on 810 Columbia Street, 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock tomorrow, and a week from tomorrow. I just figured I'd give her a shout out. But thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Motion.
Is that a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a second from Beatrice. Everyone have a good evening. Thanks for the meeting.
If you could all leave your mics out,
No.
please.